good number of years ago, long before I became a bishop, I just reflected on the idea, what are the attitudes or motivations that would help a person to persevere in the priesthood? I was thinking about that because during the course of my priesthood, I had seen priests who I knew at least casually abandon the ministry. So I asked myself that question: what keeps the priest going on and persevering? I came up with three ideas that are a little idiosyncratic, but here they are. First thing I said, well, it's really helpful when you're enthusiastic about what you do. And it doesn't hurt at all if you have some kind of other ministry beside the normal work of parish life. It's important to be reading prayers at the graveside and at wakes, but it can become a routine if you let it. But if you have some other ministry, even being a chaplain of a courage group, for example, or pro-life activity, something that's related to priestly ministry, but it's an add-on, that's a great enthusiasm builder. The same way it's essential for a priest to pray the breve and say Mass every day, but if he wants to be enthusiastic, he has to spend that extra time before the Blessed Sacrament. That's more than the minimum. That was one idea. The second idea was, it's important to think about your priesthood in terms of your eternal salvation. If I abandon ship, I'll put my soul in jeopardy. Not judging anyone else's case, but I'm looking at myself. If I don't continue on, I could lose my soul. An important idea. And the third thing, what helped me a lot was friendships and connections, a spiritual connection with people, especially in the parish, but other type of people who I could not let down. That the connection was so there that I couldn't disappoint them. For me, for example, it was the young people in my parish on Staten Island where I spent 19 years. And that was quite a connection. I just was buoyed up by that, not being able to let them down. I think the first one of those ideas doesn't have too much connection with the meeting for this weekend, but the second two do. And that second one I was thinking about, especially at the bishops' meeting in June. It turned out that the last day of the bishops' meeting, the gospel for the Mass was from Matthew. If your eye is your difficulty, pluck it out. If your hand is your problem, cut it off. It's better off to enter life without an eye or a hand, rather than be cast into Gehenna. And I thought about that because I was saying to myself after the meeting, it's really great to have protocols and structures of accountability for bishops and priests and everyone else. But really, we have to think about ultimate accountability. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says, number 1056, following the example of Christ, the Church warns the faithful of the sad and lamentable reality of eternal death, also called hell. A hell of a topic to introduce, you're thinking. Sorry. But I think one of the problems in the church today is that people oftentimes have lost that kind of horizon. When I think about, and everyone can think about, some of the things that have taken place, even among the clergy, how could people do such things and still be thinking about eternity and the eternal consequences? Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was in Soviet prisons, once said that you don't want to find yourself in the hands of people who don't believe they're going to be judged when they die. And he knew what he was talking about. So that's an idea that needs to be part of a person's mental horizon. It can obviously be a problem if somebody becomes morbidly obsessed with that, or neurotic or anxious. But a person should obviously think about the justice of God, and that's really absent, for example, in a lot of these ministries that deal with this issue of same-sex attraction and are encouraged. Father Harvey used to talk about, first of all, white-knuckle chastity, and then that virtue of chastity, which is a habit, where somebody, because of their depth of prayer, really can't even conceive of using another person as an object. They become so habitually chaste. But white-knuckle chastity implies that there's a cliff that you can fall off. It implies that there's something to be, in a good sense, fearful about. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's not the end of it, it's not the be-all and end-all, but it has to be part of our mental horizon. I think that aspect of the gospel is absent a lot of quarters today, but it's not absent in courage. And the second thing is the idea of friendship, and that's the theme of today's this conference, friendship. Like I said before, great thanks be to God. I've had, and I know everyone here really has had connections to the priest, spiritually to other people, but that's what courage hopes to foster. Friendship not as hail fellow, well met, but friendship that involves accountability and the idea that these are people who love me and I don't want to let them down. Those kind of ideas will be fleshed out in the rest of the conference, obviously, because that's like I said, the conference is about. Friendship is an aspect of courage. But it's an important idea when it keeps us going forward. It's interesting, the last day of the Bishops' Conference, the reading from the Gospel was words of challenge and rebuke. If your hand is your difficulty, cut it off. If your eye is your problem, pluck it out. But the words of the Gospel from today's opening of the Courage Conference are words of consolation and hope. It's just a coincidence? Well, as they say, we report, you decide. But at any rate, I think the message of today's gospel is in accord with that message you see in the dining room, you will see from Pope St. John Paul II. Courage is the work of God. These words of consolation and hope are telling everyone here that you're on the right path. You're in the right place. It's a great thing you're here. It's Jesus speaking to your heart. He's telling you that he's leading all of us on the road to salvation.